So we're talking about depression and mood today in ADHD. And this is like, I've had so many people email me like, hey, I can't be there. Is there going to be a recording? And I'm not surprised because 1 in 3 people who have been diagnosed with ADHD have had depression or have had a depressive episode. So if you have depression, it's really, really common. You are normal. Congratulations, you're normal, but it's probably not the best prize, right? We don't want to be depressed. And when I was 10 years old, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and the antidepressants didn't really work. And it was really hard. And I have, I forgot the word for it, but I have kind of chronic low level depression that's very well managed at this point, and I'm not on an antidepressant, uh, but it took a long time to get tools. And some people are on an antidepressant for the rest of their lives, and it's super helpful. And I'm very pro meds if it's helpful for you. Yeah, dysthymia. Thank you for saying that. So just so you know, it's not a cop out if you're on antidepressants. It's really helpful. And what I'll talk about today, I mean, depression, because I know it very well, and mood stuff, is that depression is not just a negative, being negative or not thinking positive. It can really be rooted in biological, like, I guess, roots, right? Where your brain may not produce certain chemicals. And so you're not going to just think positive and think your way out of it. Or it could be cognitive as well, so there's different pieces. And so there's no pride in not being on meds if they're really helpful for you. And they help me in a lot of ways for a long time. So I just want to say that up front, that if you have depression, it's really normal. And sometimes being on meds is an amazing thing and it saves lives. So if you need that, go do it, even if it's just for a couple of years to get you through something or something, So what the agenda is, I want to give you a little bit of facts about ADHD and depression, and then we'll touch on mood stuff, especially bipolar. That's actually pretty common to be misdiagnosed or to be a co-occurring diagnosis. And then some reasons that we're more likely to have depression with ADHD, and some things that you can do about it or how to address it. Back to some of the stats. Like I said, 1 in 3 people who have been diagnosed with ADHD also have depression or a depressive episode. So that's really normal. And then when we look at it, 32.7% people with childhood ADHD experienced recurrent depression in adulthood. And then 43% of ADHD children met the criteria for co-occurring depression. So that's about 1 in 4 kids with ADHD experience depression as well. And there's a high, increase of having that. And then the prevalence of ADHD in adults was as high as 22% among those currently experiencing depression. So a large percentage of people with depression have ADHD as well. So it's really interesting, kind of the co-occurrence. Some things that make it more likely to have depression if you have ADHD is if you're female or genderqueer. Those increase the chances of occurring depression. If you have the inattentive type of ADHD, so you don't have as much of the hyperactive, can't sit still busyness. The busyness is inside, right? Your body's calm, but your mind is constantly going, this internal chatter that doesn't quiet, or you get brain fog, or you forget stuff. If you have undiagnosed or untreated ADHD, or you don't know you have it, for those of you who didn't know you had ADHD and then now know, of course you're going to be more depressed if you don't know you have it, right? Like it's you think something. I mean, I thought something was wrong with me, and just got to hide parts of myself, and oh my gosh. And then also maternal depression. So that is associated with higher rates if you've gone through that. And then if you have co-occurring conditions in childhood, especially if you have ODD or OCD or any other kind of co-occurring things, that is going to increase the risk as well. So I want to say that it's really normal. And we've had somebody in one of our Facebook groups mention it on the graphic about how they're really experiencing a tough time. And I thought that was so brave, because the more that we talk about this, the better it is. And it can feel so scary when you're feeling depressed or low mood to talk about it, because you think somebody's going to think you're negative, or you don't want to bring the energy down or whatever. And that is what you'll find is when you tell people you're having a hard time, a lot of times we want to help and want to be there for you. So the cure, I'll say, for depression sometimes is the opposite what you want to do. Because I know when I've had my depression episodes, I want to isolate, right? I don't want to talk to anybody, and my energy's low and all that stuff. I don't want to go out, and it's like connection and getting out and moving and just getting out of the house is the thing that helps you. But then depression is like, no, don't do that. So it's really interesting. So yeah, depression is quite a thing. Also, a couple things that are more likely to cause depression. We statistically, as a neurodivergent, our biology, yes, our biology is different. We a lot of times have lower levels of vitamin D. So when you get your blood work done, a lot of insurance will pay for that. Get your vitamin D levels checked. Do that, because that can really contribute to depression at a high level. And you'd be amazed at what happens when you get your levels at like 50 or above. So a lot of us will get it tested, and even if we take supplements for vitamin D, the normal amount, like 1,000 milligrams, whatever, for a lot of us, it's not enough. So talk to your doctor, obviously, about that. But I can't tell you how much low vitamin D levels can contribute to depression. And Western medicine is great, right? We've got a lot of medicine. We know how to treat urgent things, but we don't always address nutrition deficiencies and more of the nuance in our medical system. And so that's why it's really important to get your vitamin D levels, because you might get an antidepressant and they won't even look at your vitamin D and they make the correlation. So just want to throw that out there. And there are some antidepressants that also help with ADHD. Somebody mentioned Wellbutrin in the chat. So if that works well with your biology and you've got both, your doctor might do something like that. So again, talk to a doctor that knows what they're talking about. The other thing that can contribute to depression, or we might think might be depression, and it's something a little bit different, is what's called the window of tolerance. And you've heard of me talk about this before. I think if you've been on these calls. So let me show you that. And this is really common with ADHD. So this is a window of tolerance, right? And this is from my mental health background. So this is our baseline, right? This is the ideal when we're really regulated. We're at baseline. We're in a good place, optimal mood. And so this is where we want to be. And then up here is this hyperarousal. So we're too stressed. We're overstimulated. This is too much, right? Overreactive, can't calm down. And then this hypoarousal. A lot of us recognize this. We don't know about this. This is when we're depressed, lethargic, numb, unmotivated. Think of this as like too little dopamine, and this is like too much dopamine. This red is too much dopamine, too little dopamine. So because we're understimulated, our brain is chronically understimulated. And so sometimes, right, if you've ever thought, well, when I have a lot going on, then I'm in a good mood or I'm doing better, but I don't know how to get to that point. We want to look at depression from a couple of different ways, because it might be that if we can get you moving or get you stimulated, then it can actually help with depression, or it could be causing some of the depression. And so this is ideal, right? And so with someone without ADHD, their brain's going to regulate this, or without another diagnosis, their brain says, oh, we're hyperarousal, let me regulate and bring it down. Oh, let me automatically regulate this. Whereas us, if you think of a car, right, it's kind of an automatic car without ADHD or diagnosis. With ADHD, we're driving a stick shift, and we've got to manage this a lot. So I live a lot in this hypoarousal. I have always been understimulated. I've always leaned towards depression. So that's why I work out almost every single morning and get some kind of movement or something, because this is my baseline. Like, I'm not kidding. This is my baseline. So I know certain things that get me in here every day. So I don't live in this. So I'm not on, I wouldn't meet the criteria severely. And so again, this is just how my brain works, right? I wouldn't say no to an antidepressant. It would probably help me a little bit, but I've got it managed right now, and I'm okay with that. So just know, if you feel like you're just not yourself and you're depressed and you're lethargic and you feel burned out, but you don't really have a reason to be, it might be that there are some things you can do to stimulate your brain that can bring you into this, and that can help a lot too. So we're addressing it from a lot of different angles. The other thing that can really contribute to depression for ADHD is what are called cognitive distortions. And so I want to show you this. And we've done a call on these, and I'll probably do one again. But this is the cognitive thing, right? So we could have a chemical imbalance where we're just wired for depression. That's just our biology. I would put myself in that camp. We could also have the ADHD and we're understimulated. Our life is not built around how we're at, right? So it's environment, it's biological, and then also the cognitive side of things. And so what are cognitive distortions? And there's one specifically that really, really contributes, and that is all or nothing or black and white thinking. So these are cognitive distortions. Again, this is my mental health background, but there's 10 main cognitive distortions that everyone in the world can experience, right? Like all or nothing thinking, overgeneralization, mental filter, discounting the positives, jumping conclusions. So we will include a link. I'm not going to go over to this call, but we'll include a link to this so you can read about these. But the core one that a lot of us experience, and that's really tied to depression, is this all or nothing black and white thinking. And this is also very common with ADHD. It's also a trauma response. It's common in autism. It's common in like substance abuse if you have like addiction stuff. So this all or nothing black and white thinking is what you are able to undo in therapy with cognitive behavioral therapy and talk therapy, is get out of this rigid thinking. And so what I mean by that is something happens or something doesn't feel good, and instead of saying, hey, that didn't feel good, but these things are okay, it's, oh my gosh, this is terrible. It's never going to get better. It's always like this every single time. So those are some of the key words you want to look for with this all or nothing black and white thinking, is every single time, always, never, kind of that extreme thinking. And that's what, when I've looked at depression and like self-harm and suicide risk and things like that, all or nothing thinking is a key player. Everyone would be happy if I'm not here anymore, right? It's never going to get better. It's always been like this. These are the thoughts that we want to soften and get in the gray, like, hey, this is a really hard year. I've had a really hard time. And the year before was good. And there's a potential that it could be better in the future. It's just not right now, right? So we just took from the extreme thing, it's never going to get better, it's always been like this, to, oh, hold on, right? Like it has been better, it probably could. And those are highly contributed to depression, is that black and white, all or nothing thinking, because it feels hopeless, right? It feels hopeless, like there's no options. Now, the reason that we can go into all or nothing thinking, especially with like trauma and things like that, is black and white thinking it's like a survival thing, right? And it helps us judge really quick. This person's safe or not. This is good or bad, right? So it's something that we can develop, and just in our wiring, our thinking can be a little bit more rigid. And so the key to that is like interrogating reality, right? If it's like, oh my gosh, it's never going to get better, this market's so hard, or I'm not going to be able to provide, it's just always been like this. It's like, okay, hold on, let me play devil's advocate. Has it always been hard? Will it always be hard? Is there no chance something will get better? So I want to throw that out there, because it's that all or nothing black and white thinking is something that can really get you. And man, it got me for years, and I still catch it sometimes. For the most part, though, recognizing that, and I was able to soften that, and it's, oh my gosh, it's changed everything. And then another thing that can contribute to our depression is like a negative self view, right? You've heard me say that kids with ADHD get 20,000 negative messages about their behavior by the age of 8 years old, right? So by the age of 8, you've been told 20,000 more negative things about your behavior, that you forgot something, what you didn't do, you can't sit, so all this stuff. And so some of this, right, is going to be our biology. Some of it's going to be the environment. Some of it's going to be just our conditioning. And so it's not just think positive or you're being negative. There's stuff coming up for you if you're experiencing depression. And we really want to treat it in all the different ways, and not just one, not just medicine, but not addressing the black and white thinking or the environment, right? Or doing some of the work that has to be done to unpack this like heavy shame that a lot of us have, especially late diagnosed, because we didn't have a name for what we're experiencing, right? We thought something was wrong with us. Or you might have a learning disability where things always felt hard, or you had dyslexia or dyscalculia or things like that, or you get overstimulated, or you have executive function. And so you think, man, why can this person do this thing easily and I can't, and so that can happen too. And that's where it's so important to integrate your neurodiversity into your identity in a like positive way. and being able to see both, right? When they say ADHD is like this disorder, that doesn't feel good. Or when we say ADHD is a complete superpower, well, that can feel really invalidating for the hard things. And so the truth is, it can be debilitating. It can be like a disorder, and it can also be this really amazing, cool thing that makes us think differently. And there's a trade-off for a lot of the traits we have. And so, it's what is the core thoughts that are really hurting, that are at the root of some of your depression. If you've already addressed the chemical and the environmental side, but the thoughts, what are the thoughts that are hurting you the most? And remember, those are probably the most compelling too. Thoughts that hurt are compelling, and they create cortisol and stress, which creates dopamine, which we have less of. So it's easy for us to get in loops. So we can get addicted to negative thoughts or to cognitive distortions because they're compelling, and because we're understimulated, and because that cortisol is a stress hormone, and we might already feel kind of lethargic. So then it creates dopamine. We can actually do what we need to do. So if one of the most powerful things you can do is some kind of movement, is one of the most powerful things you can do for depression and ADHD, because it engages that frontal lobe, which is understimulated with ADHD. And any kind of movement could be like, if you can hardly get out of bed, roll on the floor and do some stretching. Like, it will give you dopamine, right? So the more that you can give yourself natural dopamine, if you have a deficit, the less your brain is going to create negative stuff to create cortisol, to create dopamine. So movement of any type is going to be really helpful for you. Walking, even like 15 minutes a day, studies show can have vast improvements on mood as well. Which, again, when you're depressed, sometimes it's hard to move or it's hard to go walk. And that's the key with depression, is like, if you've been in like, and this, I'm going to speak to people that are in like, have been in the depths of hell and depression, if that's okay, because that's me. If I can I do that for a second and just get like real heavy and deep for a second? So I'm just gonna tell you. I haven't really talked about this, but I'm gonna tell you. So this is how bad mine got. So I'm gonna do a trigger warning for like self-harm thoughts, but I want to talk about this stuff, right? People don't talk about this, so just a trigger warning. I'm going to talk about that. So when I lost everything, it got really, really bad. This was in real estate years and years ago, probably like 6 or 7 years ago. And I had what I called my suicide shoes. So what I would do is I'd have these thoughts, and I was scared to talk to anybody, and I didn't do anything, but I put them by the door. And anytime I'd had those thoughts that came up, I would put on the shoes and I would literally just go walk. I would go walk for sometimes like 4 or 5 hours until I was too tired to do anything, or I got like enough dopamine. And that like saved my life. That was my one thing, like think of the one thing book. So I call them the suicide shoes. I put them by the door, and I wrote a speech on it. And I told it once years ago, and that's it. But it was really heavy. Like, I went in the depths, and I was in cognitive distortions, and I got on antidepressants, and it really helped me. And depression will tell you depression is a liar. It will tell you nothing will ever get better. You're better if you're not here. Nobody cares. It's never been good. It'll never be good. You've never had happiness. Like, all of these all or nothing cognitive distortions. And I didn't know that that's like what was going on. And I'll never get to that place again. Like, I'm telling you, like, it's not oh no, like, I will never be in that place again, because when you get in that place, and then it took me years to come out of that. But I finally like asked for help, because I was terrified, because I was like this big guy on big stages, and I like lost everything and all my money and everything, and because I got into this depression, I couldn't work, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like on these stages, people are gonna think I'm a fraud. Like, I just isolated, and then one day just fell apart on my mom's floor, like crying and telling her like all these thoughts, and finally got into therapy. And it took me a year or two, and I just slowly like got better and better and better and better, and like didn't rush it, and put the foundation and got on antidepressants. And because it was brick by brick, and it wasn't, oh, think positive, I really addressed all the trauma and roots and all the stuff coming up. Like, I've never been in that place again. I still will drive around and like just cry that I'm here, So I just want to tell you, like, I've been there. Like, it's scary. It's really scary. And it wasn't that I didn't want to be here. It's like, I just didn't want to hurt anymore, and so, just if anybody has self-harm thoughts, because I know there are people here who do, I've talked to some. Suicide does not take away your pain. What it does is it takes all that pain you feel, and it just hands it out to all the people you love for the rest of their life. Like, that's what happens. And I'm telling this because somebody I love attempted 2 weeks ago, and that I never thought would in my close circle. and it is going to make a almost full recovery, but is still coming out of it. So I just realized I need to talk about this stuff a little bit more, and that's why I wanted to do that this month, is just have these conversations. And so it's just wild when you're in that, how just depression is a liar, and it's just you want to be here, but you don't want the pain. And so what your brain does is it says like, well, here's a solution, like it's just trying to help you. Oh, you don't want to be in pain? Like, here's a solution. And so you also may have thoughts that come up about that, but you don't really want to do that. And if you're making a plan, yeah, get help. But sometimes it's normal to have like what's called suicidal ideation thoughts. And it's your brain like just presenting a solution. You're like, oh, I don't want to do that. No. So that's also normal to have those thoughts come up. It's when they're compelling. It's when you might take action. It's right. So I also want to normalize that, to have those thoughts. That's not abnormal to have thoughts that come up. It's when you latch onto them and it's something you're pursuing or wanting or thinking about or ruminating. That's when it's something serious. So, and then people are worried too. If I tell somebody they're going to commit me, actually, it takes a lot to get committed. I've never been committed, but it has to be a very serious. There are people when I worked in mental health that should have been committed that wouldn't, because it had to be really severe. So don't worry about like telling somebody and having freaking out and you getting picked up by padded room or something. You have to actually be close to a plan and implementing it for that. So yeah, I want to talk about that stuff, and I want to tell you too, like I never go there again. So even if you're in the depths of how like I lost 30 pounds, I could only drink milk. That's it. I couldn't eat anything, and I was sleeping 1 hour a night for like a month. So sleep deprivation on top of that is horrible, horrible, horrible. Yeah, I'm just grateful to be here. You know what I mean? And so it can always get better. And that's why we want to look at that stuff and not just think toxic positivity, do affirmations, don't be negative. Like that's the stuff that makes people not talk about it, and it's not helpful. It's not helpful. And then compassion for yourself. If you have depression, like we want to have compassion. Like that's hard to have those thoughts and to just be depressed and not enjoy things that you used to love anymore. I mean, that's really, really hard. And so like loving ourselves and caring for ourselves and like soothing ourselves is really, really important. And I didn't know all the stuff I was experiencing was ADHD. I just thought it was a focus thing. I wasn't even on ADHD meds. I just thought I was failing, and it was wild. So it made a good speech, and I think it helps people. But I'd rather have not experienced that, but I did. So if it helps somebody here, then I hope it does. Makes it worth it. And I want to touch on bipolar for a second real quick too. So ADHD and bipolar are also common to be paired together. So one study found 1 in 6 people with bipolar also had ADHD. And like 1 in 13 people with ADHD also have bipolar on the flip side, right? So 1 in 13, and they can mimic each other. You can also be falsely diagnosed with bipolar, because with ADHD, we can go from that hyperarousal to hypoarousal, right? So when you report to your doctor, well, sometimes I can't slow down and sometimes I can't even get up or I can't move, they think, oh, well, you got bipolar, right? Where it could just be ADHD. So, and the other thing is, if you have bipolar, for some people, you get on stimulants and it can cause a manic episode, and so having somebody that really understands bipolar and ADHD when you're prescribing meds, if you're likely to have potentially bipolar, you really want to look at that with somebody that knows what they're doing. So you're not getting falsely diagnosed. I mean, people with ADHD have been diagnosed as bipolar, but they don't have bipolar, and they're on bipolar meds, and it makes them feel bad. Or not good, or so again, if you think you may have both of those, I can't stress enough how important it is to go to an expert and not just a primary care doctor that gives you a med, right? You really want to go deep and understand. So yeah, that's bipolar. When we look at like how do we treat depression or mood disorders? So medication, right? Medication can be really helpful if you're struggling to the point where you can't work. Meds can be a great thing. They can be an easy button. It's not giving up. It's like actually caring for yourself. So medicine can be like self-care for yourself. If you're in that spot, I wish I would have started them sooner when I was in that my like episode. If it was that severe, right? Therapy, the right therapist who understands ADHD is really important. There are some great therapists out there, some who work in mental health, and there are some not great therapists. So just because they have a therapist, they're a therapist with a license, does not mean they're amazing and they know everything and you should, trust them and forget what feels right to you. So make sure that it's the right therapist and you feel better, right? Unless you talk about trauma stuff, you should feel cathartic, like a release, but you shouldn't dread therapy every week. That's not the right therapist. Get another one right away. And then, like I said, lifestyle stuff, exercise, movement is really important. Sleep, if you can. Sometimes depression really messes with that, but sleep is huge in treating depression. So we have a call that we did on sleep that we can get you if you need the notes, but really focusing on sleep, that's going to help regulate your serotonin as well, which can also be affected by ADHD. Regular movement, eating something. So some people, when they get depressed, they eat a lot. Some people don't eat at all. I'm the I don't eat at all thing, which our brain doesn't have the nutrients it needs, so it makes the depression worse. If you're not eating regularly, it can actually mess with your chemicals in your brain and mess with your mood. So just eat something. If it's granola bars, if it's something, a smoothie, like something, right? Sometimes, anytime I get kind of like mood, which I'm not in now, I just made a smoothie because it was fast. Protein shake, but anytime I'm in some kind of mood thing, I might go to like liquid diet for a couple days if I can't make myself eat, or even like I've done like shakes that you can pre-made, just something to get calories in. Again, I don't experience this a lot, but I've done a lot of work, so just so you know, it's very possible to like be way better with this. Mindfulness, so some people do really well with like yoga or a certain ADHD friendly form of meditation that can reduce stress. That can help. Social community. Oh my gosh. So if you're having a hard time, speak about it. I've had 5 people in the last 12 months, mainly women, that were thinking of taking their life. Reach out, talk to them, get them help. You're not going to freak me out. Like, just tell somebody. A lot of us have been there. So reach out. You don't have to suffer by yourself at all. In fact, like, reaching out might make you feel way less alone, and somebody else might be suffering too. And now you're not anymore. So community, friends, talk to people, so important. Really, really important. And then addressing ableism. So we haven't talked about this a lot in here, but ableism in a way is like somebody with different wiring. It could be a disability. It could be just, neurodivergent. It could be something different. Having the exact same expectations on them as someone who doesn't have those. And then, it's like, oh, we accept you with your ADHD, but why did you forget this? Why did you late? And like harping on somebody instead of recognizing that we might have certain things that can feel impairing, even though we have gifts that counteract those. So educating the people around you, if people are giving in your life are harping on you for things that you can't help that are due to your ADHD, have that conversation and advocate for yourself. Because if you don't, it can feel like you're just falling short all the time. And I've been in that. I've been in a relationship like that, where it just felt like I was just failing nonstop. And it made me super depressed, and my self-esteem and everything. And so learning like, hey, this isn't intentional. This is how I am. And here's what I'm going to, here, I need accommodations, right? So just, and I'll go, like I said, I'm going to go over, but I want to say, like, how do you know if you're using ADHD as an excuse or not? This is my favorite example. So if you're 5 foot tall and there's something on the top shelf that's 8 feet high, and somebody says, can you grab that? And you put your hand up and you say, oh, I can't grab it, and you walk away, that would be in a way using as an excuse. But if you say, hey, I can grab that thing on the top shelf, but I need a step ladder and I'm going to go get it, so it's going to take me an extra 2 minutes. And you go get the step ladder, you step on it, grab it, and say, here you go. That's not using an excuse, but you are saying, hey, I need accommodation. Because what are you going to do? Jump? Like, you're not a pro basketball player. So we really want to advocate for ourselves and stand firm in that, and have like advocate. Just like if you had a kid that was, or your kid that you do have, or your nephew or your kid's self, we want to advocate for ourselves and say, I can't do that, or I can do that, but I need this, or I need support, I need help. So making our lives a lot easier is going to really help. And just compassion and grace is a really big deal with us, because probably you haven't learned to do that at a high level, most likely, unless you're the anomaly. You're probably, if I had to guess, this is my profile of, you're probably a perfectionist. You're probably really hard on yourself. You probably maybe think you're lazy, but you're actually not at all. You're not a procrastinator. You have executive dysfunction likely, and you push yourself really, really hard. You probably have deep empathy. You probably care a lot about people, and so and like you might have some self-esteem stuff. Like that's like the norm. And so giving ourselves grace, you're probably really hard on yourself when you make a mistake or you forget something, like all that stuff, right? So giving yourself grace is so important. And my favorite is called the oops game. I had a therapist teach me that, right? Where I messed up or I forgot something or, oh, I forgot to do this. And that we would practice me saying oops, right? Like oops, instead of this whole like shame spiral for a whole day. And then the rejection stuff, right? We can have fear of rejection or sensitivity or just all that stuff. So give yourself grace and reach out to community and really be aware of the people you're keeping around you. If they are bringing you down over and over again, either educate them on ADHD and what you're going through, or potentially choose some new people. Because you got one life, you know what I mean? And it's precious. Like that's what I learned from what I've gone through and what I experienced of like on the edge of like not wanting my life. Oh my God, do I want my life now? Like every day I want my life. When you get so close to like not wanting it or thinking might not, and I as a kid, I was like, didn't want to be around since I was like 7 or something. Like I remember, and there's a lot more. Not everybody knows my full story, but I've gone through it. But I remember being at Christmas and like thinking, man, I don't know what happiness is like. And if I'm not happy on Christmas, like I'm never going to feel happiness. Like that was like a thought process at like 7 or 8 years old. So I have had major depression my whole life. And I'll tell you, I don't feel like I have it anymore because I've addressed all the stuff. So I want to just, if you literally felt like there was no hope ever, like that's the spot I was in. And in that spot a couple years ago, hey, I've been depressed since I was 7. It'd be really easy for me to think that it would never get better. And I'm telling you, it absolutely gets better. You got to tell people. You got to advocate for yourself. You got to get on meds if it's that severe. You got to look at your vitamin D levels. You got to get movement over, every day if you can. And it's really important that depression is a liar. Like it will lie to you. It really will. So just know that. Just know that. So yeah, thanks for being here. And we'll talk to you next week. Or if you're in our group coaching, we'll talk to you about boundaries in real estate this Thursday. So, all right, everybody, take care.